Alrighty. So I suppose this is the first one or start of something new. Not entirely sure how to start my first podcast. I guess I can describe the 2K gameplay behind it. The idea is I'm a little too unsure of myself when doing this. I was like, maybe I can just kind of chatter a little bit while I'm gaming. So that's kind of, just a little something visually to be playing in the background for the people, but there we go, moving screen. But yeah, I don't know, man. I guess the main reason I'm starting this too is I'm doing the content thing predominantly on Instagram with my Instagram page I'll get beat in one. Been doing my Instagram page. I started right around Thanksgiving time. It was like whatever, is it Black Friday or whatever, Cyber Monday, whatever that little shopping holiday is before or after. It's kind of when I started in 2024, so it's been almost 2 full years, which is kind of weird to think of, but I remember pulling into a Casey's gas station in Chatham, Illinois with my buddy Will, and we were having a LAN party, and we had just gotten some coffees from McDonald's. We were both like, yeah, man, if we could just make like close to what we're making full time, doing something like, video games, just recording us playing Apex or golf, like that would really, I'd drop everything to put all my eggs in that basket, as the saying goes. So honestly, like, it was right then and there, like that. Oh, he had me on that back cut. It was honestly that week or that weekend, though, that I was like, you know what? It's kind of the year I'm done talking about all these goals I'm setting for myself or whatever. I don't want to wait for the New Year's resolution. Like I said, it was Thanksgiving time. I didn't want to wait for those 2 or 3 months to play out. I was like, just start now and start with a good habit built already for the new year. So I started with just dumb gaming clips, and then I don't know, whatever had compelled me to make some random clip of Shane Gillis talking about the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I posted that. I remember shortly after posting it, like, some of my better videos maybe at the time were getting like 1,200 to 2,000 views, and that one was like up to 5,000. And then I got to 10, and I was like, holy crap, can't believe maybe this is the route to go. And then long story short, I think after, I don't know, I guess 100,000, 200,000 views. So I had all these views and stuff, and then I had some Alex Jones clip, which honestly across all the platforms, like, people have screen recorded that and posted it on their own thing. I've had people text me. I'm not on TikTok, but people have sent me like a TikTok or like a Facebook post. I'm not on Facebook either. Of like my posts that like some page views with like hundreds of thousands of views and likes. I'm like, damn, that's kind of sick. But on my page, that Alex Jones, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing clip I chopped together or whatever, that got like, it's at almost 7 million views right now. Like, probably almost 400,000 shares. Like, I mean, when I look at the numbers, it's hard to comprehend. I often walk my dogs by the Bengals stadium. I don't think, damn, one of my good posts is like a whole stadium full of the bros, and they see a reel or meme I make, and they're like, hell yeah, let me send this to my group chat or my friends. So that's a good feeling. Like, I kind of equate it to when you send something in the group chat, and say it's like 5 people in the group chat, say like 3 or 4 like laugh at it. It's like, oh, hell yeah, that's a great feeling. But making stuff that people can send to their friends and be like, this is something we can all giggle at like schoolgirls, that's kind of what kept the whole thing going. And then after a few viral posts, I went from like, I remember hitting like 1,000 followers, 2,000 or 3,000. I remember going back to the bars back home and running into the Ingram brothers, shout out. And they were both like, dude, that was in that Shane Gillis post was going crazy. They're like, bro, keep up with it. You could be like a real influencer if you keep posting. I was like, yeah, you never know, just honestly try not to get too giddy at the compliment at the time, but I was like, I know, dude, this is crazy. And then I mean, kept posting. I really had a goal of getting to like 1,000 posts. I think I'm not even at 700 yet. And I topped out at like 17.1, 17.2K followers, which might have just been a month or two ago now. But I've been on a downslide, and I started this year of 2026 with like 2 huge videos. One was like a Bitches Love Sosa Pope edit. Shout out Pope Leo Southside. You know, a little clip of him. That's got a few million views. And I forgot what the other one was. But I was on fire to start the year. Both those were in like January. I had 2 in January that were in the millions. 1 in February that was in like a couple 100,000s. So I was like, oh, this year is going to be the year I pop off. But since then, you know, I might have jinxed myself. Since then, I've just yet to have a post of that viral of a whatever. So it's like, you know, kind of deterring or like hard to stay as super positive. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like growing at the rate I've been growing at for the last 18 months or whatever, to sustain that growth would be like unheard of. But also, to go back to that conversation with Will in the gas station parking lot when we were like, let's just start this thing. It was like, you know, why not us from the start? You know, why not us? Not like, and from the start it was, we're never going to outgame or post this great gaming content, but we could foster a community that, you know, gives people a little peep into our friendship, our inside jokes, our little gaming sessions. And there's people out there that might not have that, or that used to have that with their friends and just missed that. So we were there we go, a good extra pass. But yeah, it was kind of like, you know, that's what we can do, that's what we can do. So regardless, it's been a rough few months, but I have felt like I've not been doing a great job because I've been losing followers for the first time in this whole Instagram excursion thing. I've used to just been going up, and I haven't had any posts that have been like hyper viral. I guess my palette for success got a little too big for my britches. I was, as my freshman world history teacher once told me, Mason, you can't live a champagne lifestyle on a beer budget. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right, Chris Edmonds, but what the fuck does that have to do with the Napoleonic Wars? And regardless, though, where I'm going with this, too, I'm saying regardless a lot, pounding this coffee. Where I'm going with this, though, is I'm attaching a lot of my like self-worth or whatever to these numbers I'm chasing, followers, likes, whatever. And I'm past, 2 or 3 months now almost, I've been applying to jobs, and it's like these companies that don't even know me but have like 2 or 3 maybe half-hour phone calls with me, and then they're going to decide like what my, you know, how much freedom I can buy myself in the world after a, you know, 40 hours a week of dedication to them. So it's like, oh my gosh, all right, how much money am I worth? You know, how many followers and likes am I getting? I've been on the bike recently. I just had a day on the bike, and it's like, how many watts can I put out? How many miles can I go in so many minutes? I don't know if that's just like a shout out to the Persians for creating algebra and everything. I wasn't too fond of the subject myself at the time when I was studying in university and high school. But just trying to understand the world and assigning value, not to myself, but, you know, to these goals and these milestones or whatever that I have. It's like, I don't know, it's too much at times, but it's good to track my progress. And then I'm also thinking to myself, do I not just like tracking the numbers now because they're not all going up, and I'm not getting these job offers with salaries in the range that I want, and, you know, the average home cost is going up, and I don't have enough savings for that, and what's my 401k look like, and, you know, what if I want to propose to my girlfriend in the next few years? Like, I don't have money for a ring, you know, what if I want to buy her a nice ring? So it's a matter of playing the game, trying to stack up the Monopoly cash in GBPs in the background, but also trying not to get, you know, lose sight of the whole thing in some little chase for some little number in my bank account or something to pop up. But at the same time, it's like you kind of got to do that if you want to play the game at all. If you want to go on vacation, you want to. Not even sure if you want kids, but God forbid you have one, you're not ready. It's like, I mean, school, basic cost of living, put clothes on their back, house, a yard, all that stuff. Stuff I shouldn't be stressing about, but stuff I feel like I should be projecting for the future. At least, be on some kind of financial track where, and it's hard not to compare to where your parents come from too, right? It's like, gosh, I don't know. I feel like my dad had a house by this time and was, ready to settle down with my mom. And by the time they were 30, turning like 31, 32, they had adopted me. A lot of you are probably like, oh yeah, then you have kids. Or you get on a freaking airliner jet and you fly across the pond to Moscow, Russia. And you pick out a little Arab kid from Moscow City Orphanage number 1 and go, this one one day will likely develop, I guess you don't develop dyslexia, but maybe you develop some ADHD too. And go on to make some fire Instagram reels and be a micro-influencer and not make a dime off it. That's the thing that's probably, I guess, really bothering me. Is every time I mention something like that to somebody, not somebody, but a lot of the times it's like, for anyone to really care, clout's cool and all or whatever, but it'd be nice if it was like actually, I don't know, and maybe it was building towards something, part of it's staying patient. When I started, there's an Apex, I'm just going to the rack all game, I'm not even doing shit. There's this Apex game where I like, though, that I kind of was watching his videos and I was like, man, if this guy can sit in his cool little house or apartment or whatever and make stuff, I'm like, how many short form videos did he have and all this stuff? So I was like, all right. He was at 1,200 at the time that I was looking at, 1,200 short form posts. I was like, I'm not going to quit until I at least hit 1,000. So I've for sure grown way more than I had ever thought I probably would have gotten to. But yeah. Enough of the socioeconomic state of the world and my mindset on self-worth. Let's talk Kennedy assassination. I was watching something earlier today. Dr. Dolce, I forget if he's like the Marine naval expert, ballistic wounds expert, or naval or Army, some branch of the military. He's like the ballistic wounds expert, and he was hired, it was either by the Warren Commission, it had to have been by the Warren Commission, but it was omitted from, come on, we got to finish that. Come on, great vision there. We're not finishing that. Dr. Joseph Dolce, there's my dyslexia coming in. Warren Commission comes together and says, look, Kennedy was assassinated. We got to figure out how the hell it happened. So a lot of people were suspect of the bullet. I forget what a CE 399 or whatever the evidence file is. They're like, I don't know if this bullet's the bullet that hit Kennedy, passed through his back, hit his vertebrae, hit a rib, came out his throat or whatever, and then, passed through his wrist, then went through the front and hit Governor Conley, the governor of Texas at the time, riding in the front seat. Not, people, the researchers were always like, he's a big guy. He's 6'3", 6'4". You're just going to break his wrist bone and lodge into his thigh. So that's the magic bullet you always hear about. And it's not really the path. I'm not really a hunter by any means, but I've asked some neighbors of mine as well as heard the whole Joe Rogan slogans on the podcasts and whatever of the guests that he's had on, and they're gun experts, and they're like, yeah, when a gun hits, when a projectile, I should say, when a bullet, when shot out of a gun hits bone, it does some weird things. Like hunters will say it hits one side of a deer and enters on the same side instead of, passing straight through and exiting. And I've asked my neighbor who's an avid hunter if stuff like that's weird, or he's like, oh yeah. And he's like, everything gets deformed. Even if you shoot something into the gravel or into the ground, the bullet's going to have some markings on it or, a little whatever. And the bullet, the magic bullet, CE 399 evidence file is just this pristine, perfect looking bullet with no dents or anything. So it doesn't, look like it was really shot in a lethal way where it, broke bones and killed somebody, or was at least the precursor to the lethal shot, and it broke Governor Conley's wrist bone and everything. So Dolce gets together, I think it was 100 sheep cadavers. It was either sheep or goats. They had to find this part of the... Well, I was kind of like, why the hell did they pick that? I guess, obviously, easier to get hands on those bone cadavers. And then you can find, like, parts of that body where it's, like, similar in bone density. Oh, all right. Similar in bone density or whatever, Moore's durability chart or whatever they call it. So he takes the Mannlicher Carcano rifle, the rifle that Oswald allegedly used to fire 3 or 4 shots at the president, or fire 4, miss 1, hit 3. And he shoots these cadavers 100 times. And, there's videos of him on YouTube saying it to me. He's like, in every instance, there's not one time where the bullet wasn't deformed. And he's like, there's no way that the bullet in the Warren Commission report is the bullet that killed Kennedy. Again, maybe not the bullet that killed him, but the one that, passed through him. And obviously that's kind of when he comes out from behind the the road sign on the Zapruder film. I think it's like an interstate sign. He like leans forward and is like grabbing at his throat. But yeah, so people are kind of like, oh, what's the deal with Dr. Joseph Dolce? It's omitted from the Warren report. It wasn't actually included in the files because obviously it goes against the magic bullet theory that was invented by Arlen Specter, who was just a law student. Just a law student from Yale, had nothing to do with fucking looking at that case, in my opinion. But there's recently, I think his name's Paul Landis, a CIA agent. He did, I guess it's maybe almost been, gosh, this was when I was living at my last apartment, so it must have been 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, when I saw this interview for the first time. CNN clips, like Today, Daily News type, local, whatever. He claims that the bullet that we see in the Warren report is a bullet that he found on the back motorcade seat. And he saw it wedged into like I don't know if it's like nylon or it's probably not polyester. Yeah, I'm a presidential motorcade. Come on. For heaven's sake. Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln, something like that. Lincoln was shot in Kennedy Ford Theater. Not going to get into that. Paul Landis finds this bullet wedged in the back seat, and in a mad dash of, getting the president to Parkland Hospital and, forensic evidence, clean up, and there's media and press there, like, what happened to the president? And then they're like, pull the motorcade behind the hospital. We don't want media and press taking pictures of this with the blood and brains everywhere. So Paul Landis claims in that mad dash, mind you, it's a zero-fail mission as a Secret Service agent, and you and a bunch of people just witnessed the president, for lack of a better term, get his brains blown out in broad daylight on American soil. So, shitty day at the office nonetheless. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was scrambling, didn't know what the hell to do. I don't blame him for being in a weird state of mind. I'm gonna sip this coffee real quick. He claims to have picked the bullet out of, it's a little unclear in some of the CNN interviews that I saw, but if he wedged it out of the seat or pulled it up off the seat, and took it and placed it on the gurney that it was later found on Governor Conley's gurney. And he said that's where it was. A lot of the stuff that I've seen would suggest that, okay, yeah, sometimes if you shoot a bullet, into water or into something that's, whatever, like a little seat cushion in the back of a, limousine, that would not leave a ton of markings. It might leave a little bit of this and that, and little deformity on the top, or flatten it where it's supposed to be a little rounded. So Chad, this isn't something I've seen popularized. I just want to put that out there, and we can call this the Secret Agent Swood Theory Case File 1, whatever you want to label it. But I would say that that's pretty strong case for a potential. Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's why this was that, and that's why the bullet doesn't look like the bullet that actually hit the bone. And where did that bullet go? We don't know. Here's another thing that's weird about the magic bullet, quote unquote magic bullet that they claim. I'm playing like shit too, by the way. I think I'm averaging like 40 and 12 this year. Not getting a lot of assists. Another thing though about this magic bullet, Connolly, I mentioned this thing hit his wrist and broke it, right? Great find, you gotta knock it down. Wow. So there's more fragments missing from this bullet that I believe are like hypothesized to be left inside of the governor's body still, or I don't know how you would call it, inside his, arm or whatever. Oh my gosh, can my team hit a shot, man? So it's like, oh, okay, well, it's like, if all this stuff's missing, how's there more fragments that are missing that allegedly been pulled out of and still in his body? I think there's even some dispute of whether that's even like the same bullet type. But yeah, if you ever want to look into something interesting, Dr. Joseph Dolce, some really interesting work that opened my eyes to a lot of the forensic evidence cases or files or mishaps or whatever that kind of revolve around the Kennedy case. What else? Yeah, I really like history, though. It's not just the Kennedy stuff. I would say my main love for history did come from the Kennedy assassination. I had a good family friend of mine. He was probably 5 years older than me, and he was having like a a high school graduation party when I was starting at the high school that he was graduating from. He was like, when you have history, you go to Mr. Lavin, you ask him about JFK. And before this, I remember, to wind back even further, I remember my buddy Cole, his family had gotten he was my next door neighbor growing up. We'd do like everything together, and we were over there. They had gotten like an iMac, and we were like, holy crap, we were watching YouTube and stuff on there. And he was, a really good student, a bit of a prince of a man, as Mr. Lavin would say, a history buff in his own right. And he put me onto the Zapruder film and showed me, and I was like, holy fuck. I remember being like the 5th or 6th grade, we were watching that, and I was like, dude, I can't believe there's just a video of a president getting assassinated on the internet. I didn't even believe it was real. He had to like convince me that it was a real, he was like, yeah, this is actually, I was like, holy crap. Shout out to Cole for being way ahead of his time, for showing me that when we were like 11. And I was like, and then he was like, yeah, and you want to know what's crazy? He was like, the person that shot him, some people don't even really believe that was the guy. And Cole might not even remember that, but he was on game when we were pretty young. So I was like, what? And then I remember we got into a whole, this was in a day of us without any parental control, just perusing YouTube. I remember we were looking at like all these dumb YouTube conspiracy theories. There was one that was like, Osama Hussein bin Laden, he did 9/11. I like all this dumb shit. But, we were young and impressionable, like, what? Oh, my gosh. Obama does rhyme with Osama. So, nonetheless, that opened up my door. And to even go back even further, being adopted and whatnot, I remember in, like, 1st grade, my teacher talking to us and being like, yeah, next year you guys will have your first communion. I went to a Catholic school. And I remember like raising my hand, telling my teacher, like, if I didn't move from Moscow to here, I wouldn't believe in this God and I wouldn't have first communion. And she was probably like, why is this kid so fucking weird? Holy shit. I definitely don't get paid enough to answer those questions. But jokes aside, I remember being like, from a very young age, kind of thinking, oh yeah, this is all kind of contingent on the fact that I moved here and was adopted. And my shout out to my parents. My parents are very open and, whatever you want to call that. Open, honest, line of communication about the big A-bomb, as they call it, the big adoption. But yeah. Got where I was going with all that. Perhaps I should sip my coffee and rip a blinker to get back on track. Oh, but history, yeah. So I like history. Cole put me on. And I was kind of like, my whole life, maybe a little pessimistically skeptic about everything around me or institutions or whatever. And I know that's kind of corny to say, and everyone kind of maybe grows into that. And the thing is to kind of say like, oh, yeah, who would trust the government? But honestly, from a young age, I was kind of like, yeah, this is all cool, but it could have been way different probably. And, that being my name, that being my religion, that being the country, and, growing up, every movie, you know, every mobster, you know, bad villain is speaking in a Russian accent, or, you know, you go watch the Iron Man movie. It's just a military industrial complex. The first one's just about him selling weapons to the American fucking government to fucking bomb a bunch of people in the Middle East. That's like an early 2000s, 2010s thing. So, you know, growing up my whole life, what's the whole Jordan Peterson thing? Young men are told that. That's not a very good Jordan Peterson accent. Well, you know, it's like they're bloody told. These young men, they're told that they're not loved. But yeah, whatever. It's like these young men aren't fucking accepted or loved or whatever. But I've really never felt too pressed about that or whatever. I'm from a small town and kind of went to school with the same folks my whole life and had a pretty good upbringing. But I do feel like in the media and Hollywood or whatever you want to call it, there's like a sensationalized, you know, fuck the Soviets, fuck the Russians. And even like in textbooks in school, for better or worse, if the teachers, you know, they're kind of just following what's in the McGraw-Hill. Here's the thing. I'm kind of retarded. We're not going to get into all of the Epstein, Ghislaine, Maxwell stuff on the first one, guys. Let's cool our jets. But yeah, you know. I was kind of, you know, like, is Russia that bad? But you can't say shit like that out loud, especially now. I don't know if you can start like a free Moscow hashtag. I don't know how many people would. Let's unpack that, actually. I think my friend Peter, he was telling me something like Clinton had signed this thing. It must have been Putin at the time. That was the 90s, right? So it could have been Putin. Maybe it was the guy before him. But it was like, yeah, we're not going to expand NATO any further to the Russian border. And I think all those post-Soviet countries were kind of like, we definitely want to be a part of NATO. And NATO's like, sorry, like we made a deal to not piss off like Russia or Putin or whoever to, you know, keep adding you guys. And then lo and behold, man, he went and poked the sleeping giant, the sleeping bear. Who would have known that this is going to turn into a super pro Putin podcast? No, I'm kidding. But that's kind of the thing that I've liked to, like, that whole thing's super ironic to me because Moscow exists because, and Russia exists because the Kievan Rusian people from Kiev, Ukraine, they were running from the Vikings and the Mongols. The Mongols are coming from the Asian steppe, Central Asia, and the Asian horde, and the Vargarians, the Varangians? I forget what the Viking name was. I think they're like a Finnish tribe, though. They came in and were going up and down the Moskva River, or Moskva, I forget, whatever that big river is on the Moscow city that kind of ran through those forests and kind of paved everything. So you got essentially the capital of Ukraine in modern time, Russia pressing that. But really, the Rusian people came from Kiev. I don't know. I really don't know a ton about history. I know a decent amount about the Napoleonic era and kind of French history. I really like French history. A life goal of mine, like the whole lifelong learner thing. I'm just fucking dribbling around doing nonsense. My goal for that is to be like semi-fluent in French. So I've gotten off the Duolingo thing. I've kind of been doing that with ChatGPT for the past like a year or so. Yamadooskies. And that's been good. Every now and then I'll have them test me and be like, what reading level am I at? I think very, very, like, patting myself on the back. I can almost read on like a 7th, 8th grade level. And I would say on like a pretty conservative, like I'm reading on a probably like 3rd and 4th grade level pretty well, which is, I mean, nothing great. I took French a little bit. J'ai étudié français un petit, comme ci, comme ça, SHG, I don't know how to say high school. Mon école avant university. How about my school before university? So yeah, I want to speak French. I like French history. Napoleon's badass, so I've been kind of jumping into that. And I've been kind of neglecting Russia in all of my historic dives, and I don't know, maybe that's a weird psychological thing where it's like, I don't want to know where I'm from type thing, but, you know, aside of the, let's call it state media, the Illinois state media, the big Illinois state media trying to get me to hate my homeland. No, but I'm like, I don't really know anything about Russia other than the Cold War and that they like shot a monkey into space before us, and then we were like, fuck, we have to get to the moon. So that's basically all I know about Russia. But I mean, I was looking at some 19 million civilians, Soviet civilians, not citizens, civilians, died in the Second World War. I mean, that's just fucking insane. I had no idea that that happened. I think like on top of that, another 8 or 9 million soldiers died too. So I mean, just staggering numbers that I was never really aware of. So that kind of opened up a little rabbit hole for me or whatever. I was like, what was going on over there? Stalin was arrested in Azerbaijan. I don't even think it was Azerbaijan at the time, but that's the country my birth mother was from and a citizen of. So I was like, kind of interesting about post-Soviet, the whole Iron Curtain thing and everything. So I've been trying to dive into that. My friend has read Dostoevsky or whatever, so I try to get a little recommendation on that. My buddy Will, same guy we're at the gas station with, so try to get a rundown on that and try to know where I can start there, understand the psyche, but I'm starting from square one. The only thing I knew prior to starting this was some of the stuff with the Kennedy era and like Cuban Missile Crisis. And then like way back with Rorik, who was like the first United Slavic Russian prince king guy who, whatever. So I'm trying to unpack from there and trying to get it going. Understand the Kievan Rus. Really, I'm interested in Moscow because that's where I'm from. That's where I was born. But I don't discriminate history-wise. I also have been really interested in like the Lesser Antilles, which is like Martinique, Saint Dominique, some of those countries. Toussaint Louverture, Haitian revolutionist, guy who fought for Haiti's independence. I mean, this guy Toussaint Louverture, his last name got turned to like the gap or the opening. A lot of people are saying that's because he was like the gap or the opening of a new era. Some people say it's because he could like see and penetrate openings in his opponent's forces and stuff. Either way, this guy, a Haitian guy, rounds up a bunch of like this guy. Hang on, I gotta pause my game for this. He bought his wife's family, and his own family out of slavery and opened up like it's a fucking mom and pop shop, but brought them to like his own plot of land and plantation where I think it was like a sugar plantation. So they were out of slavery, like total badass. There were like a ton of, French guys, and I don't even know if they were Dutch at the time really, but I mean, really interesting shit. And the island was divided. Toussaint Louverture I believe he beat the English. He beat the British, who were stationed there at one time. It was the British had troops there. The Spanish came. He beat Spanish forces. I think the island might have been split down the middle at one point. It was like Saint Dominique and Haiti or whatever. I think it is still split. I mean, but whatever. At the time, I think it might have been called something a little different by the natives and whatnot. And as it was passed back and forth between like the English, the French, and the Spanish, are kind of the dialects of the name and the island it was called, I think. At least in history that I'm studying, the Victor's Right history or whatever, right? So I'm sure the people there called it the same thing the whole time, but whatever, these journals and shit I've been reading have been interesting. But Louverture beat the French. I mean, this is a guy who had his Declaration of Independence or whatever you want to call it, like his constitution for Haiti when he declared independence. He had it dictated by like all of his closest men after he had beaten some of the local white forces out of there. And then he was like, hell yeah, thanks for dictating this. And the guys were like, bro, you basically just made yourself emperor, and Napoleon was fucking going crazy at the time in Europe. And he was like, bro, you just poked Napoleon, the bear of all bears, who's going to come over here and fucking mess us up. So Louverture is a guy who was on Napoleon's desk. Napoleon knew who this guy was. The English were all pissed off because, the France had gotten pushed out of most of North America. Louisiana had been purchased back. But this small little island colony of Haiti was so profitable with coffee and sugar, I believe, were the main things. But yeah, Louverture is a fucking badass. When the nationalists revolted and kicked out, I'll get back on the game here. When they revolted and kicked out the white man, a lot of them were going around just freaking. A lot of the nationalists. I don't know if you would really call them nationalists. What we would call them, the freedom fighters. A lot of the freedom fighters going around killing all of their former, I guess you'd, for lack of a better term, masters, slave owners, plantation owners, killing all these guys in cold blood, women and children. I mean, not saying it's a bad thing, but Louverture's like, yo, pump the brakes. We're going to make this a race war, and this thing will never end if it's a black and white issue. And Louverture helped his former plantation owner, the guy who owned him, probably beat him, his wife, his children, his loved, everybody in his family, helped him escape back to America freely so he would not be murdered and persecuted for his crimes. I mean, the forgiveness, the heart, I don't know what you would call that, the ability to say, that's not even ego and pride. It's just like, I mean, how could you not? I still hate the same grade schools that had good basketball games against, like, my friend Spencer and I in 7th grade. Like, I'll drive by, when I'm back home, and I wish that was a joke, I drive by them like, fucking hate that school. Those kids in there fucking all just, meh. And the fact that this guy had again, I don't know what to call it, the heart, the gall, the whatever. The Gaul, no pun intended, the French, Gaul, France. That's what the Romans called the French. Yeah. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff, though. Toussaint Louverture is a badass. I've been just into some of the island history recently and the colonies and what was going on with all that. How Hawaii became a 50th state. Queen, I can't say her last name, Luatona or something. Her diary is extremely fascinating. And I'm just kind of reading about that. Essentially, the Dole Fruit Company, not the company, but one of the family members, just kind of pulled up on a boat with a bunch of Marine mercenaries from California. And, like, England, Japan, Germany, France, everyone was kind of, grabbing shit at the time, World War I-ish. And I think England was basically like, look, as long as Germany doesn't get it, we're cool. Because Germany was becoming like a big economic power at the time. So America kind of, for lack of better terms, from the British, had a green light to go in and get the island in this, colonial mad dash. So they go in there and snag the thing for themselves. And this guy shows up on a boat with a bunch of Marines. They storm the Capitol or the palace. They, a bunch of armed U.S. Marines show up and are pointing rifles at the native Hawaiians and the Queen in her palace, and she is forced to basically sign a new constitution that gives all this voting power over to people that I think before it was like really only natives to the land and like people who had lived there and had family lineage could vote, which is like, oh, shocker that these white settlers who, these white settlers, their kids have kids, and then this third generation's like, well, we're here too, we want to vote. And then, they go back to America, they get the mercenaries come down there, and then, so, for this committee of colonial, I don't even know if they're English or what they were, ethnically or nationally, formally to coming to America, what you would really... But I guess Americans, really, what they were is Americans. They're all down there. They call themselves like the Committee of Peace. And when the mercenaries come in and get their fucking, get this VC and stuff. Yeah, they get all their stuff and basically get their rights to vote and vote out all of become the majority vote, and like I forget what they did to skew it in their way, but like whether it was by ownership of land. But this guy, this Dole, I forget his name. His last name is Dole, though, I believe. Was I forget what he called himself, Emperor Prime Minister of Hawaii for like 3 or 4 years. Kind of sort of between, let me look this up so I'm right about this. I believe it was like World War One-ish era, like right before, right after. It's got to be right before. This dude, this American guy, let me look this up. Dole, American, let's call it King of Hawaii. In chat, just to be progressive about it, I'm going to put self-proclaimed after it. Self-proclaimed king. Just to be, a little sensitive to the history. Sanford B. Dole was an American lawyer and politician who, along with a foreign businessman, overthrew the Hawaiian monarchy in 1893. He never officially proclaimed himself the title of king, but he established the Republic of Hawaii and declared himself president of said republic. And he ruled over this Republic of Hawaii from 1894 to 1900. So this kind of, reading her diary and everything, she even wrote something to like, it was Reagan or one of the presidents way later. Some president got involved way after the fact. Some queen down lineage. They tried to get an apology letter written to Hawaii. Anyways, I was taught Hawaii was just kind of like, oh yeah, and then Hawaii wanted to be the 50th state, but that's not at all what happened. And this guy, Sanford B. Dole, just went down there with some Marines on a boat because he had the finances from, his family. I think it said they were lawyers, but his family were probably like plantation owners and owned a bunch of property and sold fruit and whatever down there. Because I believe he grew up on the island. But yeah, just crazy history. So that's gotten me on a whole kick of like the Seychelles or whatever, or Seychelles. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's like this little island off the coast of Africa, I believe, and all these, islands where people just show up, and as late as like the 60s, 70s, 80s, like these businessmen are just like declaring themselves dictators of these islands. And I know it's like morally like one of the worst things you could do ever, but God, could you imagine you and your boys just taking over an island and having like the craziest 6-year run ever? Like I'll be listening to these documentaries while I'm like sending an email to a disgruntled client while I'm like criminally underpaid and like couldn't be paid more, I would have to be paid a lot more to care as much as this client does, who like wants my freaking head on a stick like it's the French Revolution. He's going to send me to the guillotine. Like, I don't know, man. Out of those 6 years, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. Absolutely not. I'm just saying those 6 years compared to like the 40 or 50 I have ahead of me to maybe retire one day. I mean, come on. Come on, man. No. Obviously, that's a joke, and I'm not the funniest person in the world, so luckily for me, I'm uncancelable. There's nothing to cancel or take from me, as I am currently about to enter my unemployed era as well. All of your unemployed friends start podcasts, so we'll see how long this actually lasts anyways, right? But, yeah. You could be like those rich Russian oligarchs who load up on those massive like yachts that are armor plated and shit, and they got mounted turrets, and they hop up there with AKs and rifles and just go fucking shoot Somali pirates in international waters. That's another thing. Look into, I think it was in Bosnia. I think this was in Bosnia. There was like a tour, like sniper tourism, like assassination tourism. There was like this war-torn, like post Czech Republic, Yugoslavia type area, and these like rich Slavic Russian people just go over there. Politicians, business, whatever you want. I don't know what they were. Yeah, I think the case opened up kind of again recently, beginning of this year. Some journalists did a bunch of work on it and looking up maybe death records and stuff to confirm it, and maybe like money wires to see these rich people going over there. But yeah, they just pop up in a building and watch these people like walk to go get food from the market, these Bosnians, and they just fucking, I guess it's wrong to call say rich Slavic. It's not wrong, but rich Slavic people. I'm pretty sure Bosnian is Slavic in its own right, but I guess that does it. Beat the Rockets. Didn't get the best out of me, but I don't know, man. Maybe we'll keep doing more of these. It's a fun little way to create some more content and talk about some of the stuff I've seen online recently. For better, for worse, regardless. So, like, actually, all those other phrases I said a million times, but appreciate you guys. Stick around for episode 2.